If you were to ask me what my favorite object is at the Frankfurt Historical Society, I would say the building itself. I just think that's such a phenomenal thing that a society build its own building. I've been involved with the life of Frankfurt since I was 4. My family moved here, although my father was raised in Frankfurt, so I consider myself a Frankfortian, that is someone who's from Frankfurt. I don't know if it's a made-up word, but we're Frankfortians. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the institutions in our community. I'm proud of the people in our community. I'm proud of the diversity. I'm proud of the opportunities. And they're opportunities, people, and diversity that's changed over time and over the years. But there's still an essence there that remains forever Frankfurt. The Historical Society of Frankfurt is one of Frankfurt's least known, perhaps, and most treasured institutions. It was founded by people in Frankfurt in 1905 in an effort to preserve, promote the history of this area. Frankfurt started as actually before it was Frankfurt, it was an Indian village, and the Swedes settled here, then the English came, and we became a borough, and in 1864, the borough or town of Frankfurt was incorporated into the city of Philadelphia. And during that time, its developmental times, 1905, people were coming out of the Civil War and moving into a more industrialized society, and they're looking at the artifacts of their lives and what are they going to do with it. And they decided to establish the Historical Society of Frankfurt to do just that, to preserve that so that it could be used as a tool in the future to educate people about life in Frankfurt back in the day. In 1930, we're actually on the grounds of what was an orchard for the Jolly Post Inn, which was a Revolutionary era inn on Frankfurt Avenue. But the Historical Society of Frankfurt building was built to house the collections, the museum, and the library for the society and offer its members and officers a place to meet. So it was built specifically to have a large auditorium, to have a stage, to have a distinct museum and a distinct library, and which has held the society in good stead all these years ever since. Every artifact has a story. Every resident of Frankfurt has a story, so we use our historical society as a nexus for that storytelling so that we can share our personal past and share the collective history and past with one another. The town and neighborhood of Frankfurt is iconic. It's representative of the development of towns throughout the United States. Some may perhaps not starting as early as Frankfurt has, but going through the transitions from an Indian community to a settlement, then becoming a little town, and then a borough, and then incorporating into the city of Philadelphia, developing residential areas, developing commercial areas, business areas, developing communities that started to diversify, setting up the schools, setting up its religious institutions, setting up its cultural institutions, and identifying itself to the rest of the world. Frankfurt Avenue has served as a link for first the Indians. Again, it was an Indian trail, and then it became the King's Highway and the first officially incorporated road in the United States. And it served as a link from point A to point B. And in this particular case with the Frankfurt L, it took those people in the rapidly developing area of Northeast Philadelphia and linked them with the resources and institutions in Center City, Philadelphia. Frankfurt Avenue, because it was a major highway and led into the city of Philadelphia where the nation began, was a major route for commerce and individuals and our military to come down through this area to secure our independence. And it currently, after a 13-year struggle, has been named a National Historic Trail. Actually, it's 680 miles from Newport, Rhode Island, through Bristol Pike and down through Frankfurt Avenue, through Philadelphia, and out and down into Yorktown, Virginia, where Washington and the Continental troops and Rochambeau and the French troops marched to achieve the critical victory that allowed us to gain our independence. As a result, Frankford Avenue is now the Northeast United States' only National Historic Trail, which is just phenomenal. It's sort of like living in the middle of a Valley Forge or the middle of Independence Square or something. We're right in the middle of history. And the troops came down, and this was not just a farm or a field. It was a community. And as they came down, they met people and they engaged with people. We have a church, we call it the Pink Church. It's the third construction at that site, but the first construction was actually used as a jail for the Hessian soldiers. And while they were here, they liked the place so much, many of them stayed. So Frankfurt has had its charm even back then, even for those Hessian soldiers that were held prisoner here. In the Civil War, Frankfurt Avenue was used as a recruiting station for those who would serve in the Civil War. Frankfurt, for a town of its size, gave more men to the effort than any other town of its size in the United States. Frankfurt has always had a really strong sense of itself. This is a banner, Frankfurt against the world. Really, we don't think too highly of ourselves, do we? This old town furnished more brave boys in defense of this country from 1861 to 1865 than any other town of its size in the entire United States. That's Frankfurt, Philadelphia. That's that sense of pride, that sense of its commitment not only to itself and the people of Frankfurt, but also to the nation. And it really believed, a small but mighty community that believed in itself. The Indians who lived in, who preceded the Europeans here in the area of Frankfurt lived along the Frankfurt Creek and the Taconic Creek that once came through here. And the Indians were the Lenape or the Taconic. There were several names for them. And we actually here at the Historical Society of Frankfurt have some of their grinding stones, some of their axe heads, and some of their arrowheads. Our oldest building, which we're seeking registration on the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places, was built in the early 1700s. It's still there. It's surrounded by other row homes. It's right there. We walk down the street, we're walking on a historic route, and we're passing a house that's several centuries old. And then we look up and we see another Victorian mansion that housed our Y for many years. Or we look over at a church that was once a prison for Hessian soldiers. We're surrounded by history, and I think people think about that history even in their daily life. Even as new people come in, the signs are there, and what we need to do is help them interpret that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to this mural project, because I believe that by expressing the rich history of Frankfurt to newcomers in particular, we articulate that and allow them to engage with it so that they can understand the richness of the society, and it becomes theirs, and they too become Frankfurtians. What do I want to see in the murals? I'd like to see a fair representation of our evolution and how beautiful that is. We're standing on a spot that went through so many changes over four centuries. It's just so incredible. We have a natural history here. We have the Frankfurt Creek and the Taconic Creek that serve to drive the grist mills and the powder mills that allowed this industry and food and residents to develop. I'd like to see somehow that you could be in one place, and it's sort of like dropping through the rabbit hole. I mean, when you could go down 5 centuries and you're in the same place but something else. I don't know how you can express that and how that can be communicated to someone walking by and seeing they could be in one place and have all that history just surrounding and embracing them. But also that it's really about the people. It's the people who have allowed themselves to work together to build this community across economic lines, across racial lines, across religious lines, across age lines, that have embraced one another. And I think that even in times of economic decline and environmental decay, there's still a light here that shines, and we just have to give it more direction. I think through the murals, I think you can focus people on the strengths of Frankfurt, the history of Frankfurt, and its potential. Frankfurt is significant.